Hello and welcome. This month in Exploring Your Edge, brought to you by Strengths Edge, we are focusing on the Gallup-Clifton Strengths domain of strategic thinking themes and how they influence our lives. Strategic thinkers create the vision for us, for what can be. And today, I want to introduce you to our guest, Quinn Banford, a strategic thinker through and through. Quinn, can you give us a little background or insight about you and your strengths?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I think it's funny to think that the first four of my strategic or the first four of my Clifton strengths in general are all strategic versus like relationship building or influencing or executing. And then that last one, number five, is in executing, which is achiever. So it almost make it when I first took this test, I thought, oh, this kind of explains why I am able to do things on the fly very efficiently, as long as that achiever element is still there executing the task at hand. Because as a writer, I depend on deadlines, so it makes sense to have, you know, a good strategy for however long I have, which shifts all the time, and then able to get it done as soon as possible. So it just makes sense why it works well with what I'm doing right now.
Can you list out your top your four strategic thinking strengths for us?
Yeah. So number one is strategic, which is funny. It's number one right there. Number two is intellection. Number three is context. Four is ideation, and five is achiever.
Fabulous. So your top four are your strategic thinking
Mhm.
and uh, and love that you're a writer and the creative thinking that you need to do to serve you in that capacity. So we'd love to hear a little bit, Quinn, about your personal strengths journey, your the discovery, and tell us a little bit more about when you first started to notice and implement strengths into your life. When do you
Yeah,
think they really started to flourish?
I would definitely say, in high school it made sense. In college it made sense. And then out of college, it also made sense. But I didn't actually learn what my strengths were until a few years ago, 2020. I think almost exactly 3 years ago. Kind of wild. Oh, I was using my strategic strength to kind of like build a strategy to get an essay or an assignment done, or it's the absence of that, um, and trying to complete it at the very last minute. Um, so I think it all makes sense going back that far. But I think when I started to really feel like I had a grasp on it, um, would have been right after college when I started working in production in Los Angeles. I was an office production assistant for a TV show, and a lot of my job was to get lunches for people. The whole office, that would be, 20, 25 people. Um, And what I had to do was I would have to use individual credit cards to pay for everyone's lunches. So I would have a stack of credit cards. Um, and I would have to go to every single one of these restaurants, usually every day, but sometimes every other day. And um, I think it was just the stress of having so many people's credit cards and also seeing the reaction of the cashier's face when I said, "Hey, can I pay for
Oh,
everybody's lunch with this deck of credit cards?" So I had to learn where those places were, what everybody liked to eat, because you're trying to get food for everybody. Um, so I think having that on the go strategic thinking was really helpful. And I was able to build a lot more, I guess, strategies in order to make that less chaotic for myself, if that makes sense.
Oh my goodness. I can see how all of your strengths there were serving you and ideating too, like where how to actually make this happen and creating that plan. Quinn, that's worse than a whole bunch of people at dinner. Hey, can you split the check? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Having different ways to do that while also trying to do grocery shopping or for the office and
Mm,
doing um, you know, POs or the things that I had been buying and figuring out the right system to do that. I think that was a good way to kind of like throw me into the more strategic thinking arena.
okay.
Um, and I it stressed me out, but it was a good learning experience. Um, but yeah, and I think looking at when I found out about strengths, I was curious about what my methodology was because I at that point I was trying to transition from um, writing for one company to expanding into a freelance role, which is what I'm doing now. Um, and I needed to have a little bit more of an understanding of how I was thinking and how I was at my most productive so that I could efficiently do the writing work on my own because now I'm my own boss, but I have, 4 or 5 different bosses with different ways of working, and I have to adapt to that. But I also have to find work, and I also need to complete the work at the same time. So there's more jobs that I'm responsible for. Getting an understanding of that initially was really helpful for me as I made that jump. And um, seeing that certain things I never had necessarily thought about being on that top 5. Like thinking of myself as a strategic thinker beforehand, I thought of myself as kind of like living in chaos
Mhm.
in a normal way. And I enjoy those environments to a certain extent, but only when I'm able to grasp it. If it's too overwhelming, it's difficult. But when it's within my wheelhouse, I think I have a better way of doing the job and the task at hand.
That's amazing. Amazing. You really, really stepped into them. Can you tell us about a time or instances when your strengths not only seemed to excel, uh, but also uplift yourself and others, like really made a difference for you and might have made a difference for someone else?
While I'm also doing writing work, I'm also working as a props assistant for commercial work up in Seattle.
Mhm.
Um, so similar to the production work I was doing back in Los Angeles a few years ago. Um, but there was this one instance where uh, I showed up to a job as, hey, we need somebody to help us wrap this job. We don't have a wrap day, which is typically given at the end of a job. So we have to do it on the last shoot day. So what I did as I show up on set, I'm like, hey, how can I help? And it's just kind of like boxes everywhere all over this garage. Um, and what I needed to do was organize all those boxes so that, you know, the props that are done, they go back into the boxes that they came in. Um, so initially it was just kind of walking into this environment where I was like, I don't know where anything goes at all. I don't know what I'm doing. How about I just start, because they don't need me on set right now. How about I just start organizing the boxes by, these are the ones that are on set. These ones are not being used at all, so we can put those over here and just building out this little um, like a navigable area for people to, literally be able to walk through because before it was a mess.
Mhm.
Um, and then from there, being able to kind of delegate, this is where this goes, this is where this goes. If you need help, talk to this person who I was working with. they know the system. Um, and so I was just trying to build that structure initially so that as the busy day progressed, if I'm pulled away, there's at least a system in place for people to continue on without me being there. But it was a lot easier to jump into it from that point than to um, have started and just, had a coffee, hung out with the people I was working with, waited for things to happen. Instead, it was more like, all right, we have a little bit of a system in place. Let's work with this. And then things change and you just have to keep moving. And I think how it helped others was they're down on set and they're working in a totally different environment. That's 15 people in this kitchen. Pretty stressful. It's kind of hot. You have to, find your fresh air every once in a while. So um, coming back up to that garage was where a lot of people would come to escape a little bit.
Okay.
And being there, just like, hey, do you need help? Do you need hands? They're just like, nope, I just I need to take a deep breath. And so you're kind of there to help others um, feel less stressed out.
Okay.
Having like a system in place that was better than, or at least in my mind, was better than what they had before. They would come up and they'd be like, "Oh, look at this! I like how this is all set up. Great, all right." And then they would just like take a deep breath, a big sigh, and then they would head back down into um, the photo shoot. So
So coming into this organized space that you were able to kind of really strategize based on how they're coming on and off the set really created like a comfortable, harmonious place where and organized where they can be efficient, put stuff away. It was also organized enough where they felt it wasn't chaos. It was a clutter-free space where they could kind of just step away from the set for a few minutes and catch a breath and then go back to work.
yeah,
And you did
or
that. Yeah,
yeah,
you created that for them.
mm,
Awesome. That's really amazing. Just being able to take the really understand how they're using the space, how they're using their props, right? Understand the context of what they're doing,
yeah.
and then creating that plan, asking the thoughtful questions with your intellection to better understand and getting curious. Also, um, yeah, creating those curious questions, asking, being able to connect with people, and again, creating a comfortable environment for folks.
Yeah.
So, so I know they loved having you around
Hey,
on the set, Quinn. Now it's important to also, where our strengths really serve, they make a difference for us, and they make clearly they make a big difference for others around us. Uh, sometimes our strengths don't always play in our favor. Sometimes, unfortunately, our strengths do get in the way of our goals and intentions. Can you think of a time when your strengths acted as a possible roadblock or a hindrance if they were uh, perhaps in overuse or not showing up at all?
Emily and I went to the UK for a few weeks this year, and she's um, meticulous planner. So
Oh,
she'll have all these. She basically built the itinerary that we had throughout. And I was kind of like, I don't know. It seems like a lot of things that we have to keep doing the whole time because there are times where I just want to like take a day to like breathe a little bit, especially when you're coming off the plane and you're exhausted. Um, so it was nice to have those kind of the tent poles of the entire trip there. So we'd have restaurants we would want to see, or shows, comedies that we wanted to see, or music, whatever it was. And at the same time, I'm thinking, well, we have to kind of get there first, see how we're feeling, and then we can from there decide how the day goes. So there was a little bit of compromise in having to, I think for me, I think of uh I could think of strategy in a way where it's a little bit, I overestimate it. So it's not always good strategy. It's almost cyclical, like we have to do this, this, and this. And it might take me out of that moment because I'm thinking about the next thing that we have to do. Um, and that's, vacation should be time to de-stress and um, you know, not have to think about work in general, which is how we planned it. And just thinking about the travel and thinking about how we get around all that stuff kind of stressed me out. And it took me out a little bit. So eventually there was a day where I was just like, I'd like to do my own thing or just, sleep in a little bit longer. And that was helpful. But yeah, I think going back to the initial, how did it not serve me is just thinking about the next thing over and over and not really being able to live in that moment necessarily.
Okay. So over planning or over always thinking about um always the next step
Yeah.
or yeah, okay. Was when it was overdone, it didn't allow you to really just enjoy being in the moment with Emily and just kind of taking it all in. Okay.
Yeah. But at that same time, still being excited about certain aspects of the trip. So it didn't cloud the whole trip. Um, I think having that strategy there was nice because then we could just go, hey, we don't have to do that. You're like, oh, okay. It's on the itinerary.
Okay.
But then it's like, nah, we don't have to do that. We're too tired or
Flexibility.
yeah.
A lot to
So
be
having that was nice.
yeah. Okay. So let's see. When working with others, has there been a strength that another person has exemplified, Quinn, that you've admired or that you've really enjoyed working with?
Yeah. I think in general, it's a lot of the relationship building
Okay.
strengths,
Okay. Okay.
the networking, the personality, and the adaptability of other people.
Okay.
Because I could be a stubborn person because of the, let's say I do have a strategy and somebody's like, I don't like that. Um, there are certain aspects of having a strategy and being steadfast about it that can sort of inhibit progress for me. So having a partner who's able to, you know, bring the relationship qualities like positivity, empathy,
Okay.
harmony, those are things that I may not necessarily bring to the table when I'm sticking to a plan.
Okay.
Um, so I do really like the the ability for somebody to see through not just what the goal is, but what the experience of a thing is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So you balance each other out where you have that vision and you have the strategies and the plan in place. And then uh, the relationship building themes really come in and kind of balance things out and perhaps allow you to step in and enjoy the moment a little
Yep.
bit, remind you that, to be present and we're here and allow you help you maybe perhaps create some more of that connection
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
yeah, nice, nice.
Yeah.
um, so as a strategic thinker, and from your experience, what environments, whether either personally or professionally, have allowed you to really shine and feel like your strengths are really coming to play and serving in a big way?
So I have to have a brighter environment
Okay.
in order to thrive.
Okay.
And I also need to get out of this space a lot. So going on a walk, being able to get myself away from this individual environment compared to like a coffee shop would be another example. But being able to go outside, take a walk, take my dog for a walk, um, that's incredibly helpful just to pull me away from the sometimes funneled thinking. So it just becomes very focused in one specific area, but being able to get outside and um, kind of wander around and let my thoughts kind of gather, get some more energy, see some maybe not bright light, but just to get outside in the light is that helps a lot too. So it's a lot about balancing those two realms. And if I have a project that I'm doing and I'm really trying to get it done in time, the first thing that I'm going to do when I finish is to go outside. Like even if it's a, you know, a 9 hour day where I'm just like clacking away on the computer, um, the first thing that I have to do is go outside. And that's really helpful.
What is it about the um, stepping away and and physically getting outside and how that relates to your strengths? I'm thinking of one in particular. I'm just really curious where you'll take us with that.
Yeah. I was thinking about it as you were talking, but um, definitely not achiever. I'm not like, I need to hike them out when it comes to getting away from whatever project I'm on. I would say letting intellection kind of flow, letting ideas uh, kind of pop out as they go. And sometimes that's what I need just to analyze one idea that I was focused on.
Okay.
And it's kind of like shower thoughts. Like you take a shower and you come up with all these funny, weird ideas, but you have nowhere to write them down.
Hmm.
At least on a walk, you can kind of, you have your phone with you. You can always just write down a quick bit, and that would be a lot of um, the ideation and intellection kind of working together in order to um, sprout new avenues for whatever that project might be. Or it's not even about the project at all. It could just be, um, oh, that's a funny joke. I could maybe put that into something somewhere along down the road, um, or taking a photo of a of something outside. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of just like freeing up the mind, freeing up the brain, uh, and kind of like going through ideas, using ideation, getting away from the strategic a little
Yeah,
bit more, and more improvising as I go.
I love that that's part of your routine. That is just something that you crave, getting like creating that break from your work and stepping outside to the fresh air and nature and allowing your mind to roam and to think about things, to generate those creative ideas that will eventually file into a project or a conversation or whatever it is. But that it's you intuitively know that you need that space to for the creative thinking, and you do that. You make it happen, and it serves you in such a powerful way. That's awesome, Quinn.
It's great. Yeah,
That
I
thinking.
appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah,
I still confuse intellection and ideation a lot. So I'm like trying to parse through the differences of
yeah.
them. But I think it's because they're so reliant on
Which
each
one?
other.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's hard
I
to
would
pull
say
them
that,
apart. They work because they do work. They do work together. They pair, and it's hard to pull them apart. But we do that just so that we can identify them and see how they are serving us.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, so you get outside when you need that break, and you've kind of figured out where you thrive, but are there environments that tend to leave you feeling kind of disconnected and closed off from your strengths, where you can't strategize, or you can't really think or ideate, or connect to what might have happened in the past?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I would say it's almost like loud environments are generally difficult to kind of have conversations with people, but I have a hard time thinking and reacting and responding to people when I can't hear what's really going on. Trivia night, for example, it's sometimes hard to fully get through all the thoughts because there's so much, but like having a trivia group and then, trying to focus on getting the right answers, and there's that competitive part of it. There's also like, I'm pretty sure that's the correct answer, but I'm kind of guessing that you want to be like fun and friendly too. I would say those environments are generally hard to like boil things down to uh, a productive space, if that makes sense. Not
Okay.
thinking about it in terms of how successful that can be. Um, but yeah, at other places that are just generally very loud. I don't like crowds as much. Um,
It sounds like, so like noisy, crowded um, places when you're trying to have a conversation or think of the right answer. uh, it's harder perhaps to stay focused and or fully
yeah,
engaged the way that you would want.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I would say I'm more of like a one-on-one person, so hanging out with one other person's great.
Okay.
Um, and if you're hanging out with one other person, you're not going to go to the loudest place to do that. You'll go to a
Right. Have
cafe.
a
You'll
have
go,
a thoughtful, meaningful conversation. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So at here at Strengths Edge, we know that our strengths go with you everywhere, and that it's important to not only focus on your strengths in relation to your career, but also outside of your professional life. So can you give us examples, and explain areas in your personal life where you think your strengths show up and make a difference?
yeah. Trivia is not my professional life, by the way. I wish it was. I wish I could somehow make a living doing trivia. Um, but I would say it's helpful for um, just, I think with the one executing trait with Achiever, I think it's just being open to new experiences, um, being open to, going on the camping trip for a weekend, doing a backpacking trip that sounds daunting, but I'm with somebody who's either experienced or knows what they're doing. That they'll pack their own stuff. I can pack my own stuff. And so let me just give the example. But over the summer, I went hiking in the Olympics um, with my friend, and we hiked up, I think, 7 miles to the campsite, and it's kind of expecting that this entire trip, I was like, I'm gonna see a bear. Like, I really hope I see a bear this entire time. That's my one thing I want out of this trip. It was just like, I'm gonna see a bear. That's gonna happen. Um, we camp out at this site, and then the next day we hike up another 7 miles. It was a 14-mile round trip that day, which was, I was shocked that I was able to do it. Um, but because it was such a unique place and such a, like, we were well prepared for it. It was raining, we were ready for it. All the stuff that goes into having a strategy for dealing with those things. Nothing's worse than having, you have to carry around a raincoat on like a beautiful day, and you don't know where to put it because it's filling up your backpack. Or carrying around boots that don't necessarily need to be um, need to be there for the rain. So it was an experience that I think about, and most hiking trips that I've been on, have been well prepared, but there have been some where they're not. So going on this one and having it be prepared was really nice. But then as we were coming back from the second day, the long hike, um, we saw elk at the top, and then coming back down, somebody whispered to us, they were like, "Hey, by the way, I would say like half a mile down, there's not a brown bear, that was terrifying, a black bear, um, and it's really close to the trail. So just like giving you a heads up, keep your eyes open." And I was like, "Yes, all right, cool. I finally get to see the bear." And we eventually get up to that area, and I'm kind of like looking around constantly, like, is it right next to me? Um, but we keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. And eventually my friend, he's like, "Hey, there it is." And it was up on our left. Um, it was just hanging out. It wasn't like a scary bear. It was just like, I'm sniffing around, I'm gonna eat some food over here, blah blah blah. I was finally like, yes, we got to see the bear, and kept walking. We had bear spray in case, so always be prepared, you know. But I was like, I was confident that the bear was far enough away, and we got past it. Um, and then we, let other people know in case they weren't prepared. Like, you
Okay.
just want to make sure everybody knows.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I think having that kind of the mindset that I'm going to see a bear and I'm excited to see a bear kind of helps with the fear and anxiety that comes with a bear. So having that kind of excitement built into a trip, um, is a bit of the strategy in approaching it, because it can be scary to encounter a bear if you're not ready for it. Anyway,
So it really like
uh,
it sounds like your strategic thinking uh really helped you be fully prepared. Like and as excited as you were to see the bear, you knew it could be possibly a scary experience, but you were prepared for should anything happen,
yeah,
or for whatever the various scenarios that you might encounter. But you were it really just uh, strategizing helped you effectively plan and with and be prepared, and being fully prepared, uh, whatever you whatever you came across, you were ready for.
yeah,
And I think,
absolutely.
there's so when you think about your strengths, so context, you've gone hiking in the past, you've had different experiences. I'm sure you brought all of those in to, you know
Yeah,
creating your strategy for this particular hike, in particular that you really wanted to see, and we're hoping that you would see a bear. And just in general, rain, shine, boots, raincoats, you had what you needed. You knew where things were, it needed to be. You just had everything ready to go, and it just made the whole experience that much more enjoyable and fulfilling.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Good.
Um,
Amazing.
it is interesting to think about things that way, as well, just in personal environments. Just because I think a lot of people want to use these strengths, for career type things, and it's useful for that. But I also think it's nice kind of know where you're at on a daily basis, whatever you're doing. Um, so knowing that for hiking, something that I never would have, I wouldn't have been like, you know what I need for hiking? I need to know my strengths.
Uh,
But now that I know them, I'm like, oh, I can apply these in different ways, and that makes sense to me.
you are someone, if I was thinking about going on a hike, uh, you would be someone I'd want with me, who is who's got the right plan, who's got a plan, who has the experience, who applies what he's learned in the past or what he knows from the past, who's asked the thoughtful questions of others who have done this in the past. I'm sure comes up with really fun and crazy ideas too, to keep it exciting. And but at the bottom, at the end of the day, just having having a plan so that you feel prepared. and feel safe and can enjoy every moment
Yeah,
uh, of of
exactly.
of the experience. Yeah. Wow. So you saw the bear.
Saw the bear.
You saw the bear. Um, so throughout your journey of finding your strengths, Quinn, and playing to them, uh, was there anything that surprised you or that you didn't realize about yourself?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I didn't think of myself as being that strategic as a person. I knew that ideation and intellection made a lot of sense. Um, but I think sometimes context is one of those that I don't necessarily give enough credit to, just because you know, I like reading the news or I like learning about history, but I didn't necessarily consider that to be a part of my own personal history or my own how I adapt to what I'm doing next. But yeah, going back to the hiking example, it's kind of looking at going on all trails and looking at all these different hikes, um, who I'm hiking with. And I think, okay, hiking with Emily, she doesn't like to do super long hikes. She likes to do seven 7 miles is generally like where we end up hiking together, but not too steep. So we don't want to do, like 3,007 miles of elevation. So just trying to figure out like realizing that context is there for a lot of different things in my life, especially with, I think we were talking last week about it, but as a freelancer, trying to find clients is really difficult for me. Um, Somebody else out there is like, it's so easy. But I have a hard time remembering how I got those clients. So I have to use the context of, you know, this company I actually interviewed for a full-time job, but they kept me in their freelance Rolodex, not a Rolodex, it's some other contraption they're probably using. Another one I got on Twitter
Mhm.
was a little strange. Not as easy to get those. Another was through LinkedIn, and another was through a former coworker. So there's all these different ways that I've gotten jobs in the past that I to continue building my portfolio or continue um, building out my client list. I have to return to those tactics that worked because those tactics that worked are still providing me, a stable life. So to expand, I need to go back to that initial thing. And I think using context has surprised me in that way because I don't refer to it all the time. I
Yeah.
refer to it in sometimes maybe not the most positive ways, but going back to context in a positive way, I'm like, oh, this is actually really helpful for me.
Yeah. The it's easy to the shiny new objects or oh come this is a fast way to accomplish XYZ or and we and then we go off our path and we're trying too many new things and land nowhere and then we forget that we had strategies that worked
Yeah,
and have helped us be successful. So that was a really cool discovery, right, that we made last week together. That
yeah,
oh wow, I do have great success in these areas. Why am I trying so many other different things? Let me go back to what's tried and true
yeah.
and and stay there. So and you have that beautiful gift of just really uh it's a great one to lean into, Quinn. That you have ready access to. Yeah.
No, it's nice to kind of focus on each one sometimes just to see what I can come up with.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's a little bit of what I need is sometimes to just have that quick, I can use this to jump into this mode and being able to flip between the two, sometimes use two or three at the same time. Um, that served me pretty well. So
Yeah.
glad I I can look back at them.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, what would you like uh, folks who are watching or reading to know about strategic thinkers in general? Any information or advice regarding your strengths that would that you'd like to let folks in on?
Yeah, I would say if you're not, if you're if you're stuck in a roadblock, you're not sure what to do, just start, just build a list or something, build a, things that you can do in order to make something happen. So for me, it would be something as simple as, update your portfolio or or um, add a new line onto your resume. It's like small, simple tasks that you can feel, you know, can help you at least do something to get out of that blank page environment. Um, don't put too much pressure. I think it's November, so and it might not be November when somebody watches this,
Mhm.
but there's National Novel Writing Month. That's a good example of the pitfalls and the excitement of strategic thinkers, because I think you could overwhelm yourself with, I'm writing a book in the month of November. It has to be, I think, 50,000 words. If you're the type of person that puts things off, like me, sometimes, then if you get caught too far behind, you might not even want to start that project because it's so daunting. But I would say just do a little bit every day until it starts to build into this more rhythmic pattern, and you'll get that thing done eventually. And it may not be, the November project that you expected it to be, but you're building in those smaller strategies that can help you. Um, it's basic like muscle memory, but for your brain. Probably
Yeah.
called something that somebody would know, but
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
But it's like exercising, you have to go. You're not going to run a marathon the first day. You have to build up to that longer pace. And the only way you can do that is not by running the marathon on the 30th day, but by starting small and working into that. That would be my big advice for
Okay.
anybody who's stuck.
Yeah, when you're just to uh to start thinking, write it out. What are some things that you can do
Yeah.
to 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 snap out of whatever it is that you're in? Well, I think that's a fabulous strategy. Just kind of giving yourself the gift of slowing down and with some encouraging ways moving forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. Quinn, I absolutely love working with you
Yeah.
and so
Great
appreciate
talking.
your insights and learning about strategic thinking and really the amazing gift that it is, what it enables for you and also and clearly what it's enabled for others in your world. Really appreciate you giving us some insights into that today. And of course, an absolute pleasure to talk to you about your strengths journey. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to share your journey with us, with our audience, and giving us your thoughtful perspective on strategic thinking strengths.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. And thank you for having me. I appreciate all of these. It's been 3 years, but things have changed so much in those 3 years that um, just super grateful. So thank you again.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. All right, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your day, and to our audience, I can't wait to hear what you think and what your insights are about strategic thinking. Talk to you soon.